Well, bonjour. So, I used to volunteer at this place called Rezo Access Network. They provided supports to people living with HIV or AIDS, and all social tiers, all demographics. They would provide standard medical standard care supports, but also host support groups, distribute complete needle kits, protections, food hampers or assistance to the semi-homed or the underfunded or um, whatever, basically anything that their clients needed to cope better with the disease they would do. They still do. I just don't know why I'm talking in the past tense. And so one day, around this same time last year, I went in for my shift, and there were just these piles of sweetgrass and sage and cedar and tobacco, and because a lot of indigenous people suffer or have to live with HIV or AIDS, and the four sacred medicines, sweetgrass, sage, tobacco, cedar, heal and rebalance the spirit, which Western medicine tends to neglect. So, to their credit, Rezo Access, took it to make little medicine bundles for their indigenous clients, and they had an elder on present to make sure everything was right, and that was what I and the other volunteers did that day. And it was one of the most kind of moving and also painful experiences of my entire time there, because I had, up until that day, I had kind of accepted that my having to leave my home community of Pick River just kind of meant that I was just never going to have any part of my culture at all anymore. It was always it was never wholly part of my life, even the first 20 years of my life when I was living on this. But it was there, it was present. And then after I had to leave, not at all, it was just this big gaping void. And I decided I didn't want to accept that, which is kind of crazy. It may sound kind of crazy. I mean, a person drowning in the ocean might not want to accept that they're drowning in the ocean. That doesn't change the fact that they are. But I'm not. And so for the past year, I've been trying to find little pieces, moments, experiences, wherever I can, however small they may be, however insignificant they might seem. And so yesterday, the first official day of fall, which always seems so arrogant to me, the idea that that a static date could be assigned to something like a season, but it was, and it made me think of when I was a kid. My day school allowed Ojibwe language classes every Friday, and the lady that taught the language would come in, and one of the things that she taught was the name of the months, the Ojibwe names of the months or moons. And she was so erratic about it. sometimes it would be like the very first Friday of the month. Oh, what month has started, you know, or she'd start the lesson like the third Friday of the month, you know, the second, the third again, first, fourth, like just bouncing all over. And now looking back on it, I kind of wonder if she wasn't just like being really subversive and like trying to break her students from this idea that seasons and changing earth and nature could be kind of controlled or boxed in, parametered by you know, all these rows and columns of 31 little white squares. But anyway, and so September, this month that we're technically still in, is in Ojibwe, that's Watepiga Gizis, or leaves changing moon. It's the time when the leaves change. Wait, did that wrong. And very soon it will be October, or Benakwe Gizis, and that is leaves falling month. I mean, these leaves have already fallen. I mean, the idea that they're going to obey, not happen until October, was silly. But that translates as leaves falling month. Or if the translation's really like reflective of modern day times, sometimes it's called leaves raking month. I don't have a rake. I don't have a yard anymore. But the campus green space is some clearer anyway. Little bit, tiny bit of it's clearer now. I used to always feel like so confused about this because, you know, growing up, I'd hear teaching is about like plants and trees and why they are the way they are all the time. You know, why the pine's needles are sharp, why roses have thorns, why some grasses are sweet, why, and healing, and why corn nourishes us, and why why the birch trees have black stripes, and why the leaves of the poplar trees make that unique sound in the wind, but never why they fall. I mean, the hard and fast answer is, you know, they're thin and fragile and vulnerable to freezing or desiccation in the southern hemisphere, and so it makes more economic sense for the tree to just undergo abscission and then reabsorb their nutrients, all the nutrients in them, through its root system next spring. Whereas coniferous trees, they can survive, and so it's more savvy to just keep maintaining them even through the winter when they can't get sunlight, but instead of having to regrow them next spring. And which, yeah, makes sense. But still, why though? Why? And I thought when I went to school and minored in biology, I thought I'd get more clear answers, of more in depth, more interesting facts. And no, all I just ever got was like this cumulative, collective glower from everyone, from my profs, my TAs, my fellow students. Go back to the back of the lab, soft science, and stop interfering with our legitimate academic work, instruction. Not that I didn't learn interesting stuff while I was getting my BA. I found it hilarious that the root word of maple trees is acer, and it means bitter. So, I mean, bitter. I mean, I know the root of colonialism, colonization is means digest, but like I never thought it was like a literal thing, like like some European got off the boat and well, that I can take a bite out of that, and you know, and no, we must denounce these trees in name and forewarn all others after us of their unpalatability, you know, that they're bitter. I can't imagine what the maples have to be bitter about, but that's maybe another video. Oh, what else did I learn? I learned that in botanical terms, the pattern on a leaf is called a scar. The scar marks the leaf's attachment site to the tree and its abscission mechanism, how it falls off. And all of the other little things are just considered tangential additional damage that couldn't be contained in the main line. Which kind of sucks. Like, I mean, just because the leaves have to fall, that doesn't mean they're not going to be returning to the tree next spring after some cold, hard months. And the pattern is like the only fun part to like draw when you're a little kid. Like the most fun, not the only fun part, the most fun part of the leaf to draw when you're a little kid. So that is my culturally disenfranchised reflection on this part of this season, whatever part of the season we might be in. Creator only knows. But hope it was interesting. Miigwech.